They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky, and altogether ooky, they are indeed the Addams Family. From 1964 to 1966, the Addams Family entered people's living rooms and entertained a generation thanks to their eccentric, strange ways in the original Addams Family TV show, a sitcom with a twist. One which focuses on a family who have a love of the macabre, who live in a dark Gothic mansion, where each week some wacky caper would occur. And back then, people couldn't get enough of it, and still can't to this day. So it's time to explore the first piece of live-action media associated with this spooky, but still loving close-knit family, as we explore 10 things that you didn't know about the original Addams Family TV series. Because I don't want to waste your time, so let's check it out! Number 10. The origins of the Addams Family. So before we talk about the TV show, let's go back to where it all began. The Addams Family was the creation of cartoonist Charles Addams, where in 1932 he got a job as a comic strip cartoonist for the magazine The New Yorker. Sometime during the 30s, Addams drew a sketch of what would become Mortia. There are some speculations that it was 1933 and other claims that it was 1937. And he drew her simply because that was the type of woman that he was attracted to. And it's even been said that the women that he married in his life resemble this Mortia image. The Addams Family comic strip started in 1938, with each family member being introduced in time. Originally, the strip focused on Mortia, but several years later, Gomez entered the domain, who incidentally was modelled after lawyer and politician Thomas E. Dewey. And of course, in time, other members of the family would be introduced, such as Pugsley, Wednesday, and Fester. The Addams Family were often depicted as being an evil and spooky family who have a love for the macabre and other ghoulish delights. An image in a 1946 strip that really hit a chord with the public showed the Addams Family pouring boiling oil on unsuspecting Christmas carolers, an image that became so iconic it even made it onto postcards at that time. Yeah, Merry Christmas. Enjoy getting horrifically burned by the Addams Family. Yes, indeed, it seemed that the public loved the Addams Family, and the works of Charles Addams in general, one of whom actually being Alfred Hitchcock, who referenced Addams in his movie North by Northwest. Number 9. In order to make a TV show, we have to give these characters names. TV producer David Levy wanted to develop a sitcom based on the Addams Family after coming across some Addams Family books. Originally wanting to make the show for NBC, which he worked for at that time, he met up with Charles Addams to discuss an Addams Family TV show. Charles Addams had been approached several times to make an Addams Family TV show or movies, but always turned down these ideas. He wasn't interested. But he actually wanted to do business with Levy, as both men were good friends with author John O'Hara. So the two would meet up several times to discuss the show, and the show's production didn't go to NBC, but it actually went to ABC. However, there was one stipulation. All members of the Addams Family had to have names. You see, originally in the strips, no member had their individual name. They were all just simply known as the Addams Family. Okay, well, Wednesday and Morticia would get names later down the track when dolls were released based on the characters. And so for the production of the TV show, they came up with Gomez, who was actually nearly called Rapelli, along with Pugsley and Lurch and so on. It was also decided to make the characters less sinister as seen in the comics, and more fun and playful. You know, kooky and zany rather than evil. I guess to make them more relatable for a TV audience. This was something that the Addams Family creator Charles Addams absolutely despised. He thought the family should be more sinister like they were in his original comics. And supposedly he really did not like the show for it. But, come on, it's 1964 television. I mean, what are you gonna do? You can't exactly have the Addams family maiming people with boiling oil. Number 8. Casting shenanigans. A truly fascinating article in Time magazine published some photos of screen tests of potential actors playing members of the Addams family, and it truly is a sight to behold. It's like they're kind of like the characters that we all know and love, but not. I also find it interesting that at one stage, Lurch could have been a really old guy. However, these unearthed pictures give us a glimpse into what the Addams family could have potentially looked like had things gone differently. It's like we're looking at the Addams family show from a parallel universe. The cast that would be chosen includes Carolyn Jones as Morticia, Ted Cassidy as Lurch, Ken Weatherwax as Pugsley, Lisa Loring as Wednesday, Jackie Coogan as Uncle Fester, who incidentally was a former child actor who starred in The Kid alongside Charlie Chaplin, and Blossom Rock as Grandma Addams. Now, when John Astin auditioned for the show, he actually originally auditioned to play Lurch, but something just didn't feel right about him playing the part. And so the production team thought that he would be better suited for the part of Gomez, who at that stage may have been called Rapelli as mentioned. And so he got the part, where the character permanently became Gomez. And the rest, as they say, is history. Number 7. The dark, Gothic family with pink walls. The Addams Family sitcom would be produced by its main writer, Nat Perrin, who was a comedy writer. He also worked for Filmways Inc., who owned the rights to the Addams Family and was overseeing the show. Despite its dark and gothic settings, the show was filmed in bright and sunny Hollywood, namely General Services Studios, which would later be known as Sunset La Palmas Studios. Despite being filmed in an era where colour TV was taking off, it was decided to film the Addams Family in black and white, in order to recreate the dark gothic look of blacks and greys from the original comic strip. But as pointed out by MeTV, the set was in fact anything but dark and gothic, as the walls were actually pink. In fact, if you look at colour photos from the set, there was actually a lot of gold and pinks. These colours were obviously chosen as they look better when being filmed in black and white. But yeah, just imagine the Addams Family living in a bright pink house. Number 6, the creation of that iconic jingle. Now, we all know the iconic theme. The Addams Family jingle might just be the first thing that comes into people's heads when they think of the TV show. Heck, when they think of the Addams Family in general. And it's definitely one of the most iconic TV theme tunes of all time. You know exactly what you're listening to as soon as you hear that dum-dum-dum-dum, click, click, dum-dum-dum-dum, click, click. However, originally it was intended to just use stock music in order to save costs. Yeah, they didn't want to hire singers to sing the theme song, so just get whatever in the music library. But it was the show's developer, David Levy, who made the call that a unique score specifically for the show must be created. A call that'll change history. TV composer Vic Mizzy was brought in to create the Addams Family jingle. So he came up with the theme via a harpsichord and bass clarinet. And when demonstrating an early version of the tune to the producers, Mizzy improvised sections of the tune by snapping his fingers. And the production was so impressed, the finger snaps were incorporated into the show's theme song, creating something truly unique and distinctive. So much so, the show's equally iconic intro would feature the Addams Family themselves performing the finger snaps. And just to throw it out there, the lyrics in the song of Neat, Sweet and Petite were provided by Lurch actor Ted Cassidy. And to think the Addams Family show could have used some generic piece of music from a library. Number 5. Now what are the odds of that? Every now and then in pop culture, we'll bear witness to some truly bizarre coincidences. Case in point, the American Dennis the Menace and UK Dennis the Menace both made their debuts in the same year on the same day. Wow. So you know what I mean, those baffling occurrences that make you think, what are the odds of that happening? Well, the Addams Family had such an occurrence, as the show came out the same time as fellow ghoulish TV sitcom, The Munsters. Yep, two Gothic horror-themed sitcoms focusing on a monstrous family, both being shown in black and white. The Addams Family made its broadcast debut on September the 18th, 1964, on ABC. The Munsters followed just 6 days later, on September the 24th, 1964, on CBS. Now apparently the Munsters were inspired by the Addams Family comic strips, and because the show was being produced by Universal Pictures, they decided to make the characters look like iconic Universal monsters, like Dracula and Frankenstein's monster, as Universal owned the rights to those characters. However, Gomez actor John Astin insisted that the two shows are very different, because the Munsters themselves were monsters, whereas the Addams Family were normal people who just had a love of the macabre. You know, just generally eccentric guys, rather than being monsters. And Wikipedia adds that both the Addams Family and Munsters production had a policy of never using guest stars who appeared on the other show, and that the general public often couldn't tell the two shows apart. So how is it we got two sitcoms that was a comedy of horrors at the same time? Well, this is speculation, but it could be because 2 years earlier in 1962, the song Monster Mash came out, which itself was a comical take on ghoulish monsters, told through a modern pop cultural lens, and was very successful, with it peaking at number 1. So maybe there was a desire to replicate that success. This newfound genre, so to speak, and two different production companies sought after to do this. So this leads one big question. Which show was the most popular and got the highest ratings? Well, apparently that's the Munsters, which is interesting to me, because in my part of the world, I would say the Addams Family is more well known and iconic than the Munsters, but you know, I guess you can't argue with ratings and history. And both shows were also cancelled at round about the same time too, with the Munsters broadcasting its final episode the following month after the Addams Family's last episode. Wow. I guess in the mid-60s, people had a kind of spooky sitcom family overload. Number 4. The Mysteries of the Addams Household. So we've already discussed the real-life pink walls of the Addams Family household, but the interior of the Addams Family home was itself a recycled set. Yes, it was previously used in the Titanic-themed movie The Unsinkable Molly Brown, which was released just mere months before the premiere of the Addams Family sitcom. So the set was simply reused and repackaged for the Addams Family. As if this family couldn't get any weirder, their house is from a movie which in part was about the Titanic. Going back to MeTV.com, according to that website, the Addams Family are the first TV family to be seen to have a home computer. Yeah, clearly the Addams Family were ahead of the technological curve. The second home computer seen on TV was in fact Batman's Batcomputer a few years later. And a gimmick that Gomez had in the show was to place his lit cigars in his breast pocket of his jacket. But in order to do so, the suit pocket had to be lined with asbestos. Ew, that can't be good. Number 3. The real-life attraction of Gomez and Morticia. One thing is for sure in that original Addams Family TV show, the chemistry between the characters Gomez and Morticia was palpable. Yes, the romance was definitely there between these two romantic ghouls. According to Brightside.me, John Astin said that one thing that helped with the chemistry between him and actress Carolyn Jones is that behind the scenes, they really were attracted to each other, which is why they decided to go for such a big romance. So clearly that romantic tension and chemistry was there. But Astin maintains that although in the show he kisses Jones's arm, that's as far as their relationship went. He never kissed her on the lips. In addition to that, each time filming took place, it would take up to 2 hours to put Carolyn Jones in her Morticia makeup. Lurch actor Ted Cassidy also used his hand to play Thing. Cousin It was an original character created for the TV show, and Wednesday's middle name is Friday. Wednesday Friday Addams. Okay. Number 2. Cancelled just after 2 seasons. So the Addams Family was cancelled just after 2 seasons, with its final episode being broadcast on April the 8th, 1966, and all up the show would produce 64 episodes. I think the fact that the show only lasted 2 seasons is a testament to how good and unique it was, as it would still go on to be one of the most celebrated and adored and most recognisable TV shows of all time. There was no official reason given for the show's cancellation, but it's been speculated that it was due to the ABC network station adopting full-colour programming the following year. One person who seemed to suffer the most from the cancellation was the Addams Family creator Charles Addams, as he stopped getting regular income from the show, as the show was now no more. What also didn't help is that prior to all this, his second wife, who was a lawyer, concocted some scheme where she convinced him to sign away the film and television rights to the Addams Family and some of his other cartoon creations to her. To which they got divorced and she owned all these rights and had them all the way till 1991 when she sold them to Barry Sonnenfeld's production company so he could make the Addams Family movie.
Basically, if you're married and your partner says to you, hey, you know this big enterprise you've created? Yeah, you should totally give it to me. It's not like I'm gonna divorce you or anything. Yes, give it to me now. Don't. Okay? Simply don't.
Number 1. Revivals and reunions. Even though the 1960s TV version of The Addams Family wrapped up in 1966, it wasn't the end of this version of The Addams Family. Far from it. In 1972, The Addams Family would appear on an episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies. In fact, this is the first Addams Family cartoon adaptation, with many of the cast returning to lend their voices to this cartoon, including John Astin, Carolyn Jones, Ted Cassidy, and Jackie Coogan. And, interestingly, a young Jodie Foster voiced the part of Pugsley. Then in 1977, 11 years after the show's cancellation, the Addams Family returned in the flesh again in a made-for-TV movie called Halloween with the New Addams Family. Which is such a weird name, as this is not a new Addams Family, it's the old one. Why not just call it The Addams Family Halloween? Anyway, once again, most of the original cast returns, and for the first time in live action, the show was in colour. And yeah, in my opinion, and it's just an opinion, this version of the Addams Family looks better and just feels more atmospheric in black and white. Sadly though, this movie special didn't start a revival in the series, and thus the next time the Addams Family was seen in live action format was the popular 1991 movie, which was pretty much the TV show rebooted. Now I won't go into too much detail as I've already made an episode about this movie. However, the following year after that movie, there would be an Addams Family cartoon, where John Astin would once again return to lend his voice to Gomez. And the Addams Family themselves would continue throughout the 90s, as we then got Addams Family Values, the sequel to the 1991 movie, and that straight-to-video Addams Family movie that starred Tim Curry. But the strangest piece of media to me associated with the Addams Family is a revival series in 1998 called The New Addams Family, which I didn't even know about till now, of which, once again, featured John Astin, but this time as Grandpa Addams. Seriously, why have I never heard of this show before? What's going on? The Addams Family brand does seem to have a bright future, as it's still going on today and still winning many fans, as there was a successful animated movie in 2019, followed by a sequel in 2021, and more recently, the Tim Burton show Wednesday. Honestly, my little niece loves this show, and is always trying to dress like Wednesday Addams, and wants all the Wednesday dolls. And whenever she sees Jenna Ortega on TV or a picture of her, she always gets really happy and excited. And with lots of glee, she says, "Oh, look, it's Wednesday!" Geek. Just kidding. So despite their dark Gothic demeanour, the Addams Family has a bright, optimistic future. And in great part, it's all thanks to that original TV show from the 60s. A TV show that has had a long and lasting ripple effect in pop culture. A TV show that brought so many people joy and is still just as celebrated now as it was 60 years ago. Yes, the show is now 60 years old and will still continue to bring joy to the hearts of its many fans, as well as plenty of ghoulish delights.
I will admit, growing up it was a bit confusing having both the Addams Family and the monsters, but I always assumed that they shared the same universe, and that the two families were cousins or something. Anyway, I'm Minty, and I can't think of anything funny or witty to end this episode with, so I'll just do the Addams Family finger snaps. See ya!